Trump is an absolute idiot. I know what a stunning and a brave take from Bowler Hat Man. But honestly, on days like today, I just don't know what other words to use. Um, because ever since he started saying this whole stuff about Ukraine, I can end the war in 24 hours. Well, 24 hours has long since passed. And it is very, very clear. A, he does not understand anything about this conflict. He doesn't understand the roots of the conflict, the reason for this conflict, doesn't understand, shall we say, the consequences that are going to be because of this conflict, and the ramifications in the future that are going to be because of this conflict. Because, oh boy, if you've seen anything or heard anything of the stuff about this week coming out about this conflict, it is incredibly worrying. Incredibly worrying indeed. And always remember, and I've always said this, if you want to understand how to end this conflict, then you have to understand one of the things the Ukrainians have been constantly asking for since this started. And that was a very, very, very simple ask of, we do not want to be fighting this war in about another 5, 10, 8 years. Because they know Putin's not finished with them. Because the Ukrainians have continuously embarrassed Putin, the Russian army, the Russian navy, the Russian air force, time and time and time again. And yet, here was a country that they themselves were saying was only going to be like a 3-day operation. Don't worry, guys, this will all be over in 3 days. You have all like the pro-Russia channels, like we've talked before about the nonsense that the Duran puts out of, oh, Russia's just fighting with like one arm behind its back. You just don't understand. They're just fighting nice. No, they're not. They are failing spectacularly of an army built on sand. It's just a paper tiger. Yeah, they've got a lot of manpower, but so what? If you just keep on funneling manpower into, a I don't know, a tree grinder, or a shredder, eventually sooner or later you run out of that manpower. And with the casualty ratings, if you look at the some of the Oshi stuff that's out there, it is well into the millions. It is the highest casualty rating Russia has suffered since Afghanistan. Even higher than that. Not as close as, of course, World War II, but, quite significant. Now, we may never know the full extent of this, but this entire adventure that they've partaken in has been nothing to Russia's gain. But now Trump is coming out and said he's putting forward his final offer, for peace requirements. So we're going to go over these final offers he's making to what Russia gets and what Ukraine gets. And to no surprise, it'll be easy to find out what Russia seems to be getting everything it wants. And we'll talk about the ramifications of those things that it gets as well in a moment. But before we do go getting into that, please do remember to click on the Patreon page, the Buy Me Coffee link, the YouTube thank you button. And of course, as always, there's the Buy Me Coffee link and the YouTube thank you button down below as well. So let's go on into this, because I just don't know what to say. So this is Trump's final offer. Like this is it. This is the very last thing. So first of all, this is what Russia gets. So Russia, first of all, gets a legal recognition of Russia's control over Crimea. So they're pretty much going, there you go, Russia, there's Crimea. They're going to de facto recognize now of Russia's occupation of most of Luhansk, parts of Donetsk, Kherson, and Zaporizhia. So not that the Ukraine regains that, those areas are going to be kept under occupation for how long? Probably indefinitely, for, well, obvious reasons. Because then, as you'll see in a moment, Russia can then rebuild and then go back and try this again in a couple of years' time. Maybe when Trump isn't in office and Trump can go around, you see, because I wasn't in office, this is why all this is happening. Oh, so it all comes back to the fact all this stuff will allow Putin, give him a couple of years, rebuild his army, he'll try again. So all this is about, and it just continues. You can see it laid out part here. So a promise that Ukraine won't join NATO. Yeah, the one thing that would stop Russia from invading again in the future. But it can join the EU. So, aren't you benevolent on that, allowing them to join the EU but not NATO? Anyway, this is of course the big one. Lifting sanctions imposed since 2014. Gee, that means, as we said, Russia can now rebuild its army. Expand now the US-Russia economic cooperation, especially in the energy and industry. Oh, just give Russia a load of money, buy more of its fuel, so then it can, well, rebuild its army, and try again in a couple of years' time. What a dynamic move there by Trump. What a magnanimous offer. Basically, give Russia everything it wants. And then, of course, you might ask, what does Ukraine get? So it gets security guarantees from a group of European countries and possibly other friendly nations without without US participation. No details on any of the peacekeeping format whatsoever. So, oh yeah, you're gonna get some European peacekeepers. A return of a small part of occupied Kharkiv region. Aren't aren't they generous when Russia gets to occupy all that land? But oh yeah, you you know you turn the small part of the occupied Kharkiv region. The full free navigation along the Dnipro River near the front line in the south. Oh yeah, again, they had full navigation of that anyway to begin with prior to this invasion. Again, aren't you magnanimous giving something that they already previously had? And then I love this one, the compensation and rebuilding aid with no clear funding source. Oh yeah, we're gonna help you, rebuild and give you aid, but there's going to be no funding source allocated to this whatsoever. What a generous offer there from Mr. Trump. And also, this is the other thing that gets talked about as well. The Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, formerly Ukrainian, is going to be now operated by US power and now shared between Ukraine and Russia. So, what was once a Ukrainian power plant is now going to be given to a US company and then shared between Ukraine and Russia. What a deal. What something that was 100% Ukrainian now no longer theirs. And of course, there's this mineral deal is of course mentioned and expected to be signed on Thursday, according to Trump. So who knows if that will be done by then? But yeah, this is insane. This does not lead to a lasting peace. In no way, shape, or form does this lead to a lasting peace. On the full account, you can see Russia occupies Ukrainian territory. How long are they going to occupy that territory for? Well, until they can try again, of course. Until they can try again. Because the Ukrainians have been saying this time and time and time again. Always, always the number one thing. We want a lasting peace. This is not a lasting peace. This is a ceasefire for maybe 5 to 10 years. until Trump leaves office. And then Putin will try again. He'll make something up and he'll invade again and take more territory. And then we're basically back to square one. So yeah, this is worrying. This is very, very worrying that this is the peace plan that's been put forward. Will it be accepted? Zelensky's already come out and said, I'm not recognizing Crimea as Russian. Why is he going to accept anything else along these lines? More for the fact, why is Russia? Because if you know the US is going to walk away, why not? So we'll see. We'll see. But this isn't a lasting peace. If this gets accepted, again, I don't know why Zelensky or the Ukrainians would even accept anything of that. But let's say for the sake of argument they did accept it. That's not a lasting peace. That's just simply a truce for 5 to 10 years until Putin's ready to try again. And he will be ready to try again in the next 5 to 10 years. Make no mistake on that. Make no mistake on that. So, as always, let me know what you think down below as well. But as always, we'll see you all next time.